Hello everyone, welcome back to another edition of Indie Book Review, where today I am reviewing The Savior's Sister by Jenna Moreci. So, full disclosure, it's no surprise to anybody that I did not like The Savior's Champion. I thought it was not very good, didn't make a lot of sense, and the main character was about as interesting as a sheet of white paper. Those opinions have not changed on The Savior's Champion. And a lot of the issues of the Savior's Champion carried over to the Savior's Sister. What happens in the Savior's Sister? Well, let's get into this, shall we? Before I start, I should mention that I am not going to be restraining myself on spoilers. This is a sequel book. If you're reading this, then you've probably read the Savior's Champion. And, well, this is a companion book. Nothing changes. And there's not much in the way of actual spoilers in that regard. So yeah, if you don't care about any potential spoilers, or spoiler tends to be a little bit more of a hot topic word than anything that's actually definable. So if you don't care, if you know what's going to happen, or little bits of a plot that's going to happen, then go ahead and listen forward. But you've been warned. I'm not restraining myself on any story beats. So, okay, let's do this. If you've read The Savior's Champion, then you've basically read The Savior's Sister. There are so many scenes with Layla and Tobias together that are basically copy-pasted from The Savior's Champion, except they're from Layla's perspective. So you get a couple little things where it's Layla's thoughts instead of Tobias's thoughts in that scene. And it wasn't needed. They definitely were not needed. Okay, so I'm just going to get this thought out of the way. There should not have been a companion novel. This should have been 2 books, sure. The Savior's, then it could have been the same titles. Except, The Savior's Sister should have gone first. And have the story focus primarily on Layla, but also on Tobias. And it's pretty much the first half of the Sovereign's tournament, while they're in the underground. And then the Savior's Champion would start as they go into the Garden of Megara and blah blah blah. Then you get then you get a little bit more of what's going on there. This book has so many scenes that just don't, like, I'm just reading it, well, technically listening to it because I listened to it on Audible, but I'm just listening to it going, yes, I was there. To have so many scenes because Layla and Tobias shared so many scenes in The Savior's Champion that take place in The Savior's Sister, that if you'd have cut those scenes out, the book in and of itself wouldn't have made any real sense, because, well, you kind of need them for the story to make sense, which is why the 2 books should have been combined. And it's a romance, so you gotta get those in there as well. Let's talk about this romance for a moment. So I've read some romance. I've always been straight up that romance has never really been my favorite genre. I'll read it, and there's been some romances that I've enjoyed, like Adam's Witness and Songs for Madeline. Like, I genuinely enjoyed those romances. I thought they were well written. They weren't particularly tropey. They felt real, so on and so forth. Blah blah blah. This romance is so saccharine. Like, it's just, I felt sick. It was just so sweet. They're so sweet to each other, but yet they always fight at the same time, and it's just, oh my god. When they're being nice to each other, it's disgustingly sweet. But when they're fighting with each other, the fights are so trivial and pointless that it's just frustrating. Because all it would take is for Layla to just go, I'm the savior. And Tobias would go, okay, this makes sense. It would also, prevent that last chapter blow up that, well warranted, was dealt with, was resolved way too quickly, and resulted in Layla pretty much giving Tobias the tongue lashing for not being supportive, instead of Tobias being rightfully frustrated that somebody he trusted and loved kept such a huge secret from him and allowed people to die for nothing. Tobias was completely right in his blow up at the end. And actually, I think Tobias's blow up at the end is actually really resonates with me, probably just because it's the only time he's actually shown any real personality. Like, he gets mad a little earlier in the book for, I don't know, some stupid reason that I don't remember and isn't even really important. Brontes or Vrondis, however the fuck Jenna says it's pronounced, says that, oh, the person you love is lying to you. And yeah, she is, straight up. But Tobias is basically just taking the Sovereign's word for it and refusing to actually listen to anything Layla has to say. So it's just contrite, it's stupid. It's the third act breakup that's so incredibly tropey that I just hate it. I hate seeing it, and it has a tendency to spoil any book or movie that I see it in. Typically why I don't watch a lot of rom-coms, because the trope is just so overused in it that, yeah. Anyway, that blow up at the end, totally warranted. But yeah, Tobias is pretty bland, and he's, even in this, like, he's just painted as the perfect guy. Everybody else, like every other male in this book, is a complete and total garbage human. Except for Flynn. Flynn's not garbage, he's just an acquired taste. Like, he's just a guy, essentially. Like, yeah, he's a little misogynistic, but... and compared to everybody else in the book, he's actually very tolerable. And that's saying something. Flynn is probably one of the best characters in The Savior's Sister. Him and Cosima, actually. Cosima has a lot of character, and she's really interesting. And it's kind of really a shame how the book treats her, because she doesn't do anything wrong until right near the end. And even then, I understand why she made the decisions that she did. She goes out of her way, puts her life at risk for Layla, only to get slapped for trying to keep up appearances, and berated for trying to keep up appearances. And hell, even before then, she was treated like just absolute garbage by Layla and Delphi for the vast majority of the book. Like, it's no fucking wonder that she betrays Layla at the end. It was like, the hell do you expect to happen? Like, Layla's treatment of people in general is just abhorrent. Like, Romulus, oh, poor fucking Romulus. Right at the start, she threatens to kill his daughter, Pippa. Yeah, Pippa is Romulus's daughter. She doesn't know this, but Layla does. She threatens to kill Pippa if Romulus doesn't work for her. And throughout the entirety of the book, she treats Romulus like dirt, like just absolute shit, and it's absolutely hard to read or listen to, because there's no call for it. Romulus is doing everything in his power to try and help Layla out, and it's just not enough. She continually calls him useless, and the guy's trying, and he ends up dying in his effort, and it's pissing me off just talking about it. Oh, Layla is just the worst in this book. Like, she's a complete and total psychopath. Her first instinct for everything is just kill it. Yeah, if it's a betrayal, kill it. If it can potentially get her ahead, kill it. The only person she actually tries to swing to her side is Romulus, and through a threat of death. Layla is a complete and total psychopath, and that is so hard to get behind. But yet, she's supposed to be this Jesus figure, this savior, this person of absolute grace and goodness. And yeah, there's this whole, I don't want to be like my dad, or Carr being all like, my murder is on your hands, which bothered her for a chapter and a half. Then never brought back up again. And her fear that she's becoming her father is brought up for a couple paragraphs, and that's about it. Like, there's no personal consequence toward anything in terms of Layla's murder spree. Like, it's astounding how she just gets away with it every time. She doesn't even come close to being caught, like, at all. And any time that she could potentially be caught, she gets away, like, scot-free. Like, no, none's the wiser. I don't care that she's really good at what she does, but there's no real conflict in anything like, there's no real struggle in anything that Layla does. I think that's why some people have called her a Mary Sue, is because she just doesn't struggle with anything. Yeah, she might have a little bit of a hardship, or she might have a little bit of a difficult time with a couple of the people she's trying to kill, especially the trained fucking warriors. But she always gets out in the end unscathed. She's never hurt. Hell, the closest thing she came to any sort of actual harm is a couple bruises. But she's the savior. She's able to heal those real quick, which, is fucking lame. Ooh, speaking of her magic, the magic system is still a complete and total mystery. I have no idea how this works. Like, I get that this savior has her magic due to holy light or whatever. Like, that's the story. She has holy light inside her that feeds her magic that she's able to do. She's able to do a bunch of different stuff, like heal people, and she's able to shadow walk and a couple other things. It's really unclear as to what, like, the extent of what her magic is. Because she's able to bless people, which gives them a piece of her power, which, that's cool. But what else is there? Like, are you just a healer who's able to teleport? Because that's essentially what the shadow walk is. It's teleporting. It's just a nifty way of saying teleporting, which, that's fine. But there's still no real explanation because, Drake the dragon is still said to have his protection spells, which, fat lot of good that did him. But, and, there's just no real world building. It didn't improve. I know Jenna doesn't enjoy world building, but if you're going to do a fantasy series, you need to build your world. I'm not saying present a whole bunch of exposition dumps or, have any sort of exposition dump at all. But just something, especially since Layla should know at least something of the world that she lives in. Yeah, she's never left the palace, but she's probably had tutors. Hell, it's straight up stated that she's had tutors because she's been taught to sword fight. Yeah, that was by Talos, her dungeon guy, which I'll get to later. But, education was still a thing. She's still smart enough to know how to work the Senate. She's still smart enough to know how to work her father. Like, she should know some stuff, but apparently she just knows nothing outside the walls, which doesn't make any sense in A, terms of royalty, and B, terms of actually any sort of world building. Like, that was a perfect opportunity for some world building. But that ball was just, it wasn't even dropped. It just wasn't, the ball never existed to begin with. And now, let's talk about Brontis or Vrondis or however the fuck it's supposed to be pronounced. I don't care. It's spelled Brontis, so I'm just going to call him Brontis from now on because that's how it's spelled. I really wanted an interesting villain. I really wanted a cool villain. I wanted something that was, interesting, like I said. This guy is so mustache-twirling villain that he even is going so far as to try and take over the world. Like, what? As soon as that plan got dropped, I damn near laughed. Like, that, the idea is so tropey and so ridiculous that it's just done. And his plan to take over the world makes no fucking sense at all. Like, none. No sense. He's gonna kill the Savior, blame a different kingdom for it, invade that kingdom, and then spread out. And then wage wars on the other kingdoms somehow, for some reason, until he has the world. It doesn't make any sense. And him as a character. He has two moods. Angry and temper tantrum. And oh my god, those are the sort of temper tantrums that a 5-year-old would be proud to throw. Like, he throws his daughter across the room sort of temper tantrum. Like, it is embarrassing how bad this guy just fails as a villain. I just can't stand what this guy became. Like, yeah, he was a sort of intimidating force in the Savior's Champion, but there was a sort of shroud of mystery around him. Like, all we really knew is that he hated Tobias. It's like, yeah, okay, he hates Tobias, but I mean, he killed the giant. Continually lips off to the Sovereign. Has failed several challenges, so yeah, the Sovereign not liking the artist makes sense. I'm cool with that. I'm fine with that. But then he became this temper tantrum, megalomaniacal idiot who wants to take over the world. Doesn't care that his own kingdom is going to fall, which is complete and total what? Considering you need crops to feed your armies. And if your crops fail, then your army is going to fail because, that's just how military tactics work. That's just, people need to eat. Also, the concept of the Thessan having a military is weird to me. Because it's stated that there hasn't been a war in centuries. And yeah, okay. Having a military is fine because you never know, just in case. You don't want to get caught with your pants down. But a few of these people are described as hardened veterans. That these people are fierce warriors and proven on the battlefield. And all I'm asking is, which battlefield? Thessan hasn't had a war in centuries, so, maybe they helped out other kingdoms. And that would be fine. If I knew which kingdoms that they helped out, when, which battles, like, the world building. That would have been a great chance for world building. But, like I said, that ball never existed in the first place. And it's just hard. It's hard to really get into a world that doesn't actually exist in the mind. It's just set dressing. Like, okay, yeah, it's set in an area that's kind of like ancient Rome and Greece. That's just set dressing. That's not a world. That's, like, I don't need full intricate details of the politics and the comings and goings of the senators and everything like that. I don't need all that. I don't need a full breakdown of the country's religions. I just want something. I want something to be in this world. I don't want just set dressing. And that's all this book offers in terms of a world, is set dressing. And this review is all over the goddamn place. I'm sorry for that, but I'm kind of just ranting because that's all this book deserves in terms of review. It deserves a rant. It deserves just frustration because that's all it gave me. But I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit. So, last point I want to make is the writing. And for the most part, Jenna's writing is pretty good. But there's a lot of overused moments. And by overused, I mean used to the point where I have noticed just how much they're used. Like, they're not used to make a point. They're not used as a means of, showing that this is a form of habit for this character. It's just something that they do. It's just phrases that's been overused. First of all, glowering. Wow, do these people glower? Like, that's all they do. That's the only facial expression that they have when they're grumpy, angry, or frustrated. They just glower. That's the it's happened so many times. Like it appears so many times in the book that I could almost do a drinking game from it. The term once. Somebody did something once, twice. Blah, 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 blah. Wow, did that happen a lot? Just say they did it a couple times, or it took a couple tries, or it did something twice. Like, you don't need to say something happened once, twice, because by then you're just adding words. You're just adding an extra word for no reason. You're adding extra attention for no reason. It's silly. I don't like it. It didn't need to be there. Obscenities filled her lips, or her mouth, or yeah, something along those lines. Obscenities filled her lips, or obscenities filled her mouth. That happened more than a few times, at least enough times for me to have noticed just how often that it showed up. It's probably the one that shows up the least amount. I don't think I heard it again since about the halfway point, but it was there enough times in the first half or so that it was worth noting. And playing with the folds of her dress. Wow, did that happen often. I don't know if Layla and Delphi and whoever else has any sort of actual other movements than just playing with their dress. I think it was just kind of a means of showing that they're not just standing rigid and talking, they're playing around. Maybe it's trying to show nervousness or something like that, but that was an instance that just happened way too many times for somebody. Like, I don't know how beta readers didn't catch this, or editors, or whoever went through this. I don't know how anybody didn't catch these and go, okay, this happens a lot. You've been mentioning these phrases a lot, and I'm sure there are other phrases that I just didn't notice that happened consistently. These are just the ones that I noticed, and I'm not particularly observant when it comes to repetition, just because I just like to enjoy the story. But these ones actually started to annoy me with how often they showed up. There's a lot of other points that I've got with this book, but I'm already past 20 minutes with a review, and I never go this long. So I'm just going to wrap things up. So for context, I gave The Savior's Champion a 6 out of 10. I was being generous with that one. But it was also a product of how I did my reviews back at that time. It wasn't so much based on personal feeling, it was based more on some personal feeling and overall skill based on a metric. Where now it's just kind of purely how I feel about the book. And if I were to do The Savior's Champion again, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10. Maybe a 4. This, I'm giving The Savior's Sister a 3 out of 10. This was just awful. I had so much hope for The Savior's Sister. I really did. I really wanted to like this one. I really wanted to actually take something away from it. But it offered so little in terms of actual content. And what it did offer was so abhorrently ugly in terms of its main character that I just could not find it in myself to like it. Like, it's just... Layla is so unlikable that it's just astounding. She's psychotic, she's manipulative, she's jealous, she's just the worst. Delphi's not much better. She's a little better, but she's not much better. Tobias is still a blank piece of paper, but his faults rest solely within The Savior's Champion. Brontes is a cartoon villain who wants to take over the world. He's right alongside Brain, except throws way more temper tantrums. And, like I said, the world is not developed at all. There's nothing there. The magic system is exceptionally inconsistent and underexplained. There's just nothing there for me. So I'm giving the Savior Sister a 3 out of 10. Like, it's just not good. So the big question is now, will I go forward with this series? Will I read The Savior's Army? And the best answer I can give is, I don't know. This series has so much room to expand, has so much potential to do better and to be something more. This series has so much of a chance to expand its world, to explain so much more, and to be so much more. I want it to be more. When it comes out, I'll make the decision then. But I've kind of been burned twice by this series. One is just bad, and the other one is almost unreadably bad. Like, I couldn't wait to get through this. I don't even know how I didn't DNF The Savior's Sister. I don't know. I have no idea. I know I said in my last video if I got burned again that I wasn't going to continue forward, but because this was a companion novel instead of an actual sequel, there's a lot of places for this to go. But I've already been burned twice, and I'm not going to have high hopes for it. But at the same time, not having high hopes might bring on a potentially biased ideal, because it might exceed that expectation that was already low. So I don't know. I'm going to make that decision when it eventually comes out, like probably 2 years from now, because that's just how Jenna seems to work. It's about every 2 years for a book release. Roughly. So, that's all I got for you guys. Or at least that's all I'm willing to give to this video. This is really long. I'm sorry. I never do reviews this long. But there was so much to say, and I didn't even get through all of it. So. Oh, are there any positives? No, not really. Any positives that I could have given this book would have been back in The Savior's Champion. The writing is good. That's the best I got. Like, it's a 3 out of 10 book. There's not much in the way of positives. So, yeah. Have a good one, folks.